In this episode, we're going to cover the 8th of Dr. W. Edwards Deming's 14 Points for Management. Number 8, drive out fear so that everyone can work effectively for the company. So fear, as I've learned over the years, a lot of times is rooted in control and motivation types of issues. And I'm not going to get too deep into that during the course of covering off point 8 here. But the kryptonite for fear is trust. And one of the lessons that I've learned over the years, and actually when I first started a podcast called Mind Your Noodles that preceded the Effective Executive, I interviewed a lot of people that are involved with using neuroscience in organizations. And one of the things that you learn in neuroscience is that stress creates cortisol. So the stress, fear, creates cortisol in your body, and there's a number of bad things that happen health-wise to you as a human when cortisol is running around in your body for long periods of time. The stress and the cortisol that's associated with it plays out in both an employee and customer. And so this gets to the heart of fear, and things that are going to create fear within an employee and customer are these things. One is social importance, or your standing within the organization. If you lose your standing within the organization, let's say you get demoted, or maybe didn't get the project that you wanted to get, there's a personal loss of it, and it creates fear and stress and cortisol in that particular person. And certainly this can go throughout the entire organization. The second thing is having a clear future, your ability to anticipate kind of what's happening next. And again, these things play out both for employees and customers. If there's no clarity about the future, and you're don't know what's going to happen next, and there's constant surprises of, we're going to lay off 1,000 people in our organization, sprung on you one day, then this is going to create fear within your organization. Third thing is personal control and freedom. And personal control, and this is the thing that kind of starts to rub into management types of control, is where's the knowledge? If somebody's been doing a job for, let's say, 3 years, and all of a sudden someone from management who's never done the job comes in to tell them, hey, we're putting in a new IT system, or here's the best way to do it. You're not going to get buy-in, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of projects fail, especially software-related projects fail, is because the individual has no personal control over what's happening. There's no freedom within their job. And one of the things that goes along with this is innovation too. You're not going to, you don't want me to have, make decisions about my own work, and you want me to innovate? No, that's not going to happen. So there's a need that every human has for personal control and some degree of freedom within the work that they do. The fourth thing, are you equitable or fair to everybody within the organization? Are there things in the organization? It doesn't matter whether they're true or not, too, by the way. And this is one thing I've learned over the years, is it doesn't matter. It's what people, the employees, believe, or customers believe. And if they believe that you're being unfair to them, then this is going to create fear and stress and cortisol throughout your organization. The fifth thing is greater good. Now, this is something that can really increase trust. And nowadays, I very much promote that organizations be involved in something that's for the greater good. Now, I still believe that Dr. Deming's focus on in his chain reaction of creating jobs and more jobs is one of the greatest goods that you can do. I've not found anything that really trumps that. So from a standpoint of whether it's a social issue or doing something for your local economy or society or whatever, having a greater good, people will relate to that, both employees and customers, but it has to be the right thing and also make a lot of people mad, depending on what you perceive to be greater good. And then the last thing that can create stress is this goes back to what I call the 95 method. 95% of the organization is attributable to, or the performance of your organization is attributable to the system that you work in, and 5% to the individual or special events and causes. And so if you're out there, in a lot of organizations that I walk into, they're seeking blame. Who do I blame for the problems that we just experienced on the last software release, on the last customer call, whatever it is? And part of my training, or a large part of my training, is teaching you to become an effective executive by understanding that typically 95% of the problems are going to come from the system, the way that's set up, and so forth. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in future points. So building a system map will help you identify areas of fear, starting with the customer. This is the way I go about helping you become an effective executive, is by building that system map. You are going to get the perspective of the customer, and you're going to also see what stress level that you're applying to this. What things are you violating? Regardless, all the things I just mentioned that create fear / stress / cortisol in your organization, just look for these things, and you can help your organization almost immediately. Forget about building the system map at the moment, but if you lay that across some of the things that are going on in your organization, then you'll be able to improve it on a very large scale. If you got some use out of this particular episode, please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell, and you'll learn other things, other points, and other things associated with how to become an effective executive.